Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Full Pelt Music Podcast. From Full Pelt Music, we do hope that you have been enjoying our Discover New Music podcast series, where we turn our attention to some of the best up-and-coming young bands from across the globe. On this podcast, of course, we focus on more established acts, and today we'll be joined by Press to MECO. But before then, just the usual reminder, please do follow us on social media, on Facebook at Full Pelt, and on Instagram and Twitter at Full Pelt Music. And if you are watching us on YouTube on the video edition, hello, please do hit that subscribe button. Now, welcome Press to MECO. Welcome everyone to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. We're joined today by Luke Caley from
Hello.
Press to MECO. Thank you, Luke, for joining us. How are you?
A pleasure. I'm good. I was just enjoying being lazy before we head out on tour. Just getting those last few little bits, like remembering I got enough socks, checking that my guitars still work, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, certainly some important stuff, socks and guitars, because it's quite a lengthy tour as well. And we'll talk about the tour in a moment. But of course, the tour's in support of your most recent album, which is your third album as a band. Transmute, it's called, and it came out in August. And I would say it's probably a very important album in the life of Press to MECO. It seems like there was perhaps a bit of a turbulent creation process, especially at the start with the album. Obviously, things have worked out very, very well. We gave it a rave review on our website. We absolutely loved the album.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So could you talk us through, the creation process for this album and how it was perhaps unlike the first two albums that you put out in the process there?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, ironically, through all the sort of turmoil that, there was internally with the band and stuff that, changed. Obviously, we had a lineup change, and Lewis and I were questioning whether we even still wanted to do this. And the creative process was actually the smoothest and easiest and most fun, we've ever had writing a record. Because I think Lewis and I had done a lot of kind of chatting and just trying to figure out why we're still doing this. And ultimately we just had to kind of find the love for it again. And the way we did that was we just kind of knew that the nuclear option of the band was just to call it a day. So kind of once we'd accepted okay, well, let's just go and write anyways, because worst case scenario, we'll just break up anyways, which is kind of what we were chatting about, so so it's kind of quite liberating to go away knowing what the worst case scenario is and coming to terms with that. And through that, we really just had the sort of, Lewis and I had the most just like liberating, enjoyable, and I don't know, kind of like inspiring sort of rediscovering the love for the creative process that we've ever had in this band. So it was through a lot of doom and gloom came what we consider our best work yet. So
no, certainly I'd echo that. And obviously you've touched on the lineup change. You've been joined by Jake Crawford, formerly of Acoda.
He's very talented. He drums for Dan Lancaster as well. He's the producer that did the Don Broco albums, the Bring Me albums.
Wow. Talk about how that dynamic shift within the band, because you've been a band for about a decade.
Quite a while.
And that was the first lineup change you've had. So how have you coped with that? Obviously, and to come out with an album at the other end of it, how was that process gone?
It felt it was one of those things. It just felt kind of like it had always been very quickly. Jake's been a close friend of mine for years now. I mean, me and him have spoken every other day for the last 5-6 years since we met each other. So, he very quickly became one of my closest friends, and, he's been a close friend of the band for so long. And it was just such a natural transition. It's strange thinking back that it ever wasn't this lineup now, I think. Right. I think, essentially the same people were still writing the songs. So from a creative perspective, nothing, although from externally it might seem like stuff's changed, nothing had really changed in regards to how the songs came out and the creative process in that regard. But yeah, it's just so great having someone with his talent and his kind of more detached input in on the back end of the record. You know, it's so cool having him come in and just have his little input and put his stamp on things at the back end, which is super cool. So it's nice to have that third person that, you know, you've got so much respect for and you really trust musically, and you can just bounce stuff off, you know, if you're not sure on things, and, you know, just someone to really get involved in that side of things.
Yeah, and yeah, the 3 albums you've put out, you know, just kind of seamlessly transition across, you know, and that lineup change hasn't necessarily impacted that. Like you say, obviously it feels like, you know, it's the same as before. And speaking of the same as before, you actually used the same producer that you used for Here's to the Fatigue, Machine. And I believe it was a bit of a chance meeting that set that up again.
Kind of, yeah, because like we did the first record with Machine, and I don't know if you know much about Machine's back catalogue or his credentials, but you know, he's of legendary status in the rock scene, and we were so fortunate to do that first record with him, and it's funny because luckily for us, he's a big fan of our band, which is mental for us, because it's just like we're just some band from you know, like Croydon and Crawley. It's like, what's this, you know, like award-winning producer got to do with our band? But yeah, we're very lucky because without that, this album wouldn't have happened. Without his passion for this band and his love for this band, you know, we wouldn't have access to someone like him, or certainly from a financial standpoint have access to someone like him. So yeah, originally, like, I think you know, we almost felt bad because the budget was relatively small, you know, on his level of producing, on that kind of top tier level of producers. Like, the budget we were coming in with was small, and it's like he'd already done the first one at a reduced rate for us because we'd basically done it off the back of the first label we signed to was best friends with Machine, and that's how we kind of got introduced to him and etc. And then the relationship was really good. And yeah, we originally had someone else lined up to do the record, and it was purely because, like, we almost didn't want to insult him, approaching him and being like, so, you know how you did the last one for real cheap, how do you feel about doing it for even less this time? It was so, we're so lucky to have him, because we actually bumped into him at NAMM, and it was one of those moments. We were actually on stage at the time, and, you know, in the middle of LA, like, he walked into the room, and as soon as we saw him, it's just like, I looked at Lewis and it's like, oh, we fucking love this guy. Like, why aren't we doing the record with him? And then I spoke to him. I explained, you know, financially, we're not in a position to give him anywhere near the fee he'd normally take, and this and that. And, you know, he just said, well, you know, why didn't you call me? We can always chat about this stuff. And he was just like, I don't care about that stuff. Like, let's just make a record we want to make. And then it's so funny. I remember vividly going backstage to Lewis and just being like, oh, fuck's sake, man. And Lewis was like, I know. And I was like, we're going to have to do the record with Machine. And then it's like, we told our manager, he fucking flipped the fuck out because he had so much, like, to sort. There's so many logistical, like, hurdles to jump over and stuff to get the record lined up in the first place. Then we're about to tear it up and, you know, throw it out the window and just, but it's the best thing, you know. And it's, he was the guy to do this album. Like, he's the guy that understands this band, and certainly where we were at right now. And yeah, like, I couldn't imagine it being any other way, you know. It would be like knowing you're in love with someone and settling with someone else, even though they on paper could be perfect for you. You shouldn't be. What's the point in going for it if you're still, you know, be doing something with someone else?
It certainly seems like, you know, the record was meant to be, you know, and it was fate, you know, that everything worked out as it did. And you actually ended up recording, to make it even more unique and special, recording in a castle as well, I believe.
Yeah, so that it was one of those things where we still talk about it now, where it's just like the amount of stuff that could have derailed or been catastrophic to our recording process that could have happened and tried to happen, and actually just resulted in us coming out with the end result, which is Transmute, which, you know, again, in our opinion, doesn't sound compromised in any way, you know. We still can't really believe that we sort of got it done. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just, it shouldn't have worked, but it did somehow. So yeah, the castle thing was that when Lewis and I went away, our manager has some very supportive, enthusiastic sort of rock music enthusiasts that are kind of like, I think, I can't remember when he met them, but they're they've got money, you know, their first job is like in insurance and stuff like that, and they've done a whole bunch of stuff, but they're just really passionate about rock music and just love seeing the scene and being involved in it where they can. And Phil, who owns the castle, very kindly said to us once, like, if you ever need somewhere to get away, I've got this little place in the Cotswolds. And to us normal people, a little place is just, you know, like a one-bed flat. But to him, it's a castle tower with a heated pool and tons of land and stuff. So yeah, like Lewis and I, that's where we went away to write the record. And you know, Jake joined the band. We decided we were going to do the record with Machine. Jake joined the band. We were about to fly out to Texas to do the record with him, fly straight back and do a full European tour with Vacavi, who we are touring with in a couple of days from when this interview is. And then, yeah, that we were all going like full steam ahead, really. And obviously COVID happened, and that put a massive halt on everything. So, you know, we were just racking our brains, because the one thing we didn't want to compromise on was having Machine do this album, and everything else we weren't fussed about. Everything else is like we'll try to figure it out, but Machine has to do this record. So we were looking into renting studios, and then the costs go up because it's not just a studio. Then you need an engineer, and then you need accommodation, and you need food, and all of these other things, and then traveling and sourcing in gear and all of these things. And I think me and Lewis were chatting about it, just being like, this is getting so messy and so expensive. Like, and Lewis made a flippant comment just a bit like, I'd rather just try do this in the castle if we're having to source this much stuff in. And it was one of those moments I went home and I was just kind of like, yeah, no, why? Like struggling to sleep, being like, why don't we do it at the castle? And I know it's a mental idea, but and again, chatting about everything aligning, it just so happened that as we started to look into it, Marshall, who have now released the Marshall studio in Milton Keynes, they happen to have all of that very, very high-end gear just sat around on crates at the time. So we were very fortunate to have them to support us, and us just be like, okay, look, here's what we need, can you send it? And they were like, yep, just tell us where. So and through a combination of Marshall's support, Machine giving us a list of what we need, us sourcing stuff that we need, management helping out and stuff, it's just like we kind of pulled together this makeshift studio. And yeah, it all kind of came together in this janky way and worked really well.
Yeah, it certainly seems like there was a higher power that was adamant there needed to be a third Preston MECO
The rock
album.
gods were certainly looking over us for that one, yeah.
And of course, something else that we've kind of alluded to, but haven't fully touched on, that has affected every band and artist for the last 18 months has been the pandemic. And obviously, the lack of touring available, also the delays in manufacture of records and all that kind of stuff. And of course, the decision was made at some point to delay the release of Transmute. You know, how did that sit with you guys? You know, given the struggles that you'd gone through to get this record put together, you know, were you just happy that it was going to see the light of day at some point, or, you know,
to be honest, between you and me, as this interview is very secret, we were very relieved that it got pushed back, because it just gave us a whole bunch of more time to sort our shit out. Like, it was one of those things. I think even Don Broco had to push their record back. Like, you know, there's so many bands this year have had to deal with this, and it's just, you know, for a band of our size, it's like you just want everything to be in your favor as much as possible, and especially the way like all the plays add up for your charting positions and all of these things, and your stats and stuff. It's just like, you just want to, we're such a small band, we just want to give ourselves the best chance we can. And also we felt like the record deserved to be presented all as one, and everybody gets to experience it in one go. So for us, it was a no-brainer. I get for fans it may have been frustrating to wait an extra couple months, but in a year's time, that you don't remember waiting those it's like my favorite albums that have been delayed. It's like, you never remember the extra couple months they took to come out. It's always, unless it's like the Tool record or something.
Chinese Democracy or
something. But you know, it's like all you remember is the art, is the body of work. So for us, it was a no-brainer, and actually it was a benefit to us, because it meant we got to get more out of the campaign that we felt like we hadn't got out yet, and just sort everything out better, basically. So yeah, it was kind of a bit of a silver lining for us, but yeah, it was frustrating at the time, but yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah, and the album's out there now. I said, you know, we've really been enjoying it, and yeah, for you, it must be, you great to have it out there. How have you found the reception to the album since it's come out?
It's been I mean, we're so jaded by the industry. It's like we don't have any false optimism or just like blind faith in anything we do in this industry. So I think we're very like real about our expectations and what we'll get. So I mean, that considered, it, I think it's still arguably surpassed, like what we hoped it would, especially getting like the charting position, like for, I think it was number 4.
Yes.
And it's like, for us, it's like that's something we would never have imagined happening at the start of the year. So there's stuff like that. But the thing that really meant the most to us was just the amount of people this time round that seemed like they genuinely connected with it on an emotional level, which is something Lewis and I were really, really trying to convey on this new record, was just like connection and just trying to feel something out of music and not trying to be clever or awkward just because that's what we were finding fun at the time, like just trying to let the songs be what they want to be and create a mood and just hopefully try make people feel some things this time round. And so for us as artists and creatives, like seeing that, on our small scale, like that it did do its job, at least to some degree, was extremely humbling. That was the best feeling out of everything.
Yeah, and lyrically, the album is very deep. I think, and touches on some important themes. Change being one of them, which is obviously something you guys were experiencing as you put that record together. Did the lyrical themes just come naturally as you were writing it, or was there a conscious decision to go that way? So
Lewis has for pretty much since the first record been the lyricist of the band. Like I'm not a man of the pen. Do you know what I mean? It's like my brain's too scatty for that. I'm for me, it's the music side of stuff and the melodies and constructing the songs and writing vocal melody and stuff that makes sense to me, whereas Lewis is so good at conceptualizing stuff. And we have especially with Jake in the band now, we have very, very similar feelings on a lot of things, where we kind of we talk, we discuss a lot of stuff and just like pretentiously unpacking stuff with our smoking pipes and our glasses. But we just like chatting about stuff and hashing stuff out, and a lot of the record is about that. And I think Lewis was just conveying the over sort of bearing theme of change and how it can be, no matter whether it's going to be for the best or worst, it's always daunting. And it can always feel like a massive thing, but sometimes you need to not resist that and go with the change. And I think a lot of the album explores just the idea of being fearful of it and the idea of how it could be a positive thing. And there's a lot of different themes throughout the record as well, but that's very much the overbearing kind of concept of it.
Great. And obviously the pandemic is kind of subsided enough in this country that we're allowed to do shows again. Let's put it that way. Obviously, it's not gone away. You guys have been through, a long process with this record, but you're finally going to head out on tour starting on Tuesday the 12th. Tuesday the 12th.
I think it is. The 12th. It'll be the 12th.
Yeah, Tuesday the 12th in Norwich is the first date of what we said earlier. It's a lengthy tour, really. But
so I think I can't remember how many shows it is. Is it like 13 or 14 shows? But I only realized it's like, we're away from the 12th and then we're back on basically the end of the month. We'll be back pretty much evening of the 29th. So, we're going to be away for a little while, but it's going to feel weird.
Well, you must be excited, one, to be able to just get out and play live shows again after the last 18 months or 2 years with the pandemic. But also, you've got a plethora of new songs that you're going to want to go out and play, so for them two reasons it must be very exciting for you.
Well, and as well as that, Tuesday is going to be our first ever show, which is mental to me.
First show with
so it's this lineup's first show. I mean, we did a couple of like sort of lockdown recording things. We did like a session for Amazon, which that was much more daunting because that's so under the microscope, and it's so just like, people could just have it on in the background. It's like, someone's singing out of tune, rather than being distracted by sweat and hair and lights, but But I mean, stuff's feeling really good in rehearsal, and we feel ready to play a show. And I mean, I'm just excited because for me, like everything's better now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you saw the band before, it just everything's a step up just sonically, and just like the level that we can play now is better. Whether that new level is any good is for who knows. Like that's for everyone else to decide, but certainly compared to the previous iteration of the band, it feels a big step up in every way. So I'm just excited to go and take that to people and see how people react to that, and just see if we've just fooled ourselves, or if it is actually better.
Well, it's a great package that you're going out with as well. You mentioned Vacavi that playing with you, and also there's Delay the Lie as well. So 3 great bands on this tour. You must be excited to get out with those 2 bands as well.
For sure. Like it's gonna be nice just seeing bands again as well. I mean, Vacavi are so good. I don't know if you've seen them recently. Like they're such a good band. They're just like every time they play, it's a party, and that the crowds are just there to have the most amount of fun you can have. So we love playing to those crowds because we get a lot from that. But I mean, we're just excited to get on the road again. Like and obviously seeing Delay, that still a new band. I think we bumped into them at Heavy Music Awards, and I think they were saying that this is their first tour as this lineup. So we're both in similar boats as in that regard. So I'm sure we'll all have each other's back. It's going to be weird though, because obviously with COVID and stuff, we're gonna have to be so careful with just being around people. And there's even things like, I think we're having to get someone in at the venues to sell our merch, which is frustrating because we really need all the money we can get, and they'll have to take a cut from that. But the alternative is get COVID and the tour gets cancelled. So it's kind of a small price to pay for us to be able to go and do the tour,
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, the pandemic hasn't gone away, and you've got to take note of that, and the main thing for you guys is to be able to play the whole tour, For
sure.
So what should fans expect from you? Obviously, you said it's going to be the first shows as this lineup. What should fans heading to the shows expect from your sets? Is it going to be a mix of new and olds?
Yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of Press to MECO songs.
Good. Fantastic. And obviously, when that tour's done, what does the future look like for Press to MECO? Obviously, you were contemplating a split, not too long ago, but clearly, hopefully, the mindset has changed on that one.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, really, we just want to get touring because we've had so long off, and a lot of this band's selling point is on the road when we're in front of people. I think that's certainly where we convert the most fans. And just getting out there and getting in front of people again is what I'm really looking forward to. But aside from that, we might do another album. We'll see what happens. We'll see how we feel after this tour.
Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast, Luke.
Thank you.
Great having a chat with you. And fans listening can check the band out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Press to MECO, which is quite easy to remember. And of course, they can check you out on tour for pretty much the whole of the rest of October with Vacavi and Delay The Lie. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the fans while you've got the platform?
I mean, just if you've listened to the new record, thank you so much. I'm sure if you've been a long time fan of the band, you'll know the ups and downs of pulling it together. So it does mean a lot. And if you've not, but you've heard the name or come across this interview, please, take 10 minutes to check it out. And if you hate it, then that's absolutely fine. There's plenty of other music.
Lovely. Again, thank you, Luke, for joining us.
No worries. Thank you,
everyone. Check out the band. Well, thank you for watching or listening to episode 2 of the Full Pelt Music podcast with Luke from Press to MECO. Please do remember to check them out on their social media at Press to MECO, and of course, grab a ticket and pop along to one of their shows. You can still check out episode 1 of the Full Pelt Music podcast with guest Frank Turner online, and you should also remember to check out our Discover New Music podcast, where we focus on some of the best up-and-coming young bands from across the globe. To stay up to date with the latest from Full Pelt Music, remember, follow us on social media at Full Pelt on Facebook and at Full Pelt Music on Twitter and Instagram. And if you are watching the video edition of the podcast on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be back soon with more episodes.